The cobbler's son, on a bleak, overcast afternoon, he stood on the weathered and peeling porch of a residence that had once been a source of immense pride, clutching a foreclosure notice that trembled in his grasp, reminiscent of an ominous death knell. The stark words "foreclosure notice," imprinted in cold, clinical type, echoed through his mind like a dispassionate verdict rendered by an unseen judge. How could the ambitious dream he had fervently championed for years be unraveling so suddenly and completely? The distant rumble of thunder blended with the soft murmur of his turbulent thoughts, mercilessly pulling him back to a different time, a life rich with contrasts. Within the confines of his mind's eye, the past emerged in a flurry of vivid and haunting flashbacks. A childhood spent in a cramped, dimly lit apartment in Harmony, where the walls seemed to echo with the sounds of laughter and lingering sadness. A cobbler's workshop imbued with the warm, inviting scent of leather and the promise of hope. And a young man, driven by an unyielding determination to escape the clutches of poverty that had defined his early years, envisioning a future filled with possibility and achievement. In Harmony's quiet, shadowed streets, David was not always the man who now stood on the brink of despair. He was once a boy with wide eyes and an insatiable hunger for something more, a desire that burned fiercely. Even in the small, suffocating apartment he shared with his 6 siblings, David's home was a mosaic of whispered dreams and constant struggles. Every penny mattered, and every inch of space was hard-won. His determination to escape the clutches of poverty that had defined his early years was a beacon of inspiration. David's father was his first teacher, a humble cobbler with hands roughened by years of mending worn shoes. In the modest workshop, where the low hum of the sewing machine mingled with the soft patter of rain against the dusty windows, his father imparted lessons beyond mere craft. "Every stitch counts, David," he would say in a low, measured tone as he repaired a battered boot. "Just like every penny you earn. Money is not just for spending, it's a seed. Plant it right, and it will grow." As a child, David was captivated by these lessons. He would watch intently as his father negotiated with customers, his small, eager hands mimicking the deliberate motions of a man who understood that trust was earned through honesty and hard work. His father's quiet dignity and unwavering ethics became the foundation of David's understanding of value, shaping him into a man of depth and character. Yet, beneath those whispered truths, there was an undercurrent of desperation, a longing for stability that could only be achieved by transcending their cramped living conditions. David's heart ignited with the dream of owning his house on those long afternoons when the cobbler's son accompanied his father to well-to-do clients' homes. He saw more than polished wood and gleaming floors in the elegant parlors and spacious kitchens he observed. He saw hope. He envisioned a future where pride replaced poverty, where every decision was a declaration of independence. The allure of this vision was irresistible, a testament to the power of his ambition. David's life took a significant turn when he purchased his first home. This achievement became a relentless source of pride for him, a story he would recount with fervor during every lunch break at work. His half-amused and half-dubious colleagues would listen as he proclaimed, "I bought my first home at 24. If you're still renting past 30, you're doing something wrong." His tone carried the weight of someone who had unlocked life's mysteries, a badge of honor that set him apart from the ordinary. In his mind, the weight of his house keys symbolized his success, confirming that every sacrifice and every whispered lesson from his cobbler father had been worthwhile. However, the purchase was not without its shadows. David found a little-known real estate website listing that promised 2 good deals. Blinded by ambition and youthful pride, he ignored any hint of caution. The agent from Homemasters LLC was smooth and almost hypnotic in his assurances. "There's a processing delay," the agent said, his voice calm yet insincere, like a well-rehearsed commercial. With a quick nod and a signature, David sealed his fate, eager to join the exclusive homeowners club. Shortly after the papers were signed, an email arrived from Homemasters LLC. This glossy, boastful message was filled with testimonials and triumphant declarations. "Another satisfied homeowner," it proclaimed. David forwarded the email to his colleagues, basking in the glow of confirmation. Much like the agent's assurances, The email served as a siren song, a red flag that he, in his youthful arrogance, chose to ignore. David faithfully paid his monthly mortgage of $665 for 15 years, a constant figure that felt etched into his very being. He watched as neighbors came and went, as seasons changed, and the once new pain of his home faded like a forgotten promise. Yet, through it all, he clung to the belief that he was building something lasting, a legacy that would finally break the cycle of poverty from his early years. Then, one ordinary morning, everything changed. A letter arrived, disrupting the tranquility of the day. It was not a stack of bills or the expected routine update, but a single sheet of paper that would shatter his world. Printed in stark black ink on crisp paper, the words foreclosure notice stared back at him, cold and accusatory. The impact of those two words was like a thunderbolt, shaking the foundation of his existence. David's hand trembled as he dialed the number on the letter. The voice on the other end was detached, professional, delivering a truth too bitter to swallow. The property was never in your name. For a moment, time seemed to slow. David repeated the words, disbelief mingling with dawning horror. 15 years of payments and pride, spent not on his own future but on a phantom debt. Home masters had sold him a house they did not legally own. It was a scam of monumental proportions, a tangled web of deception that had ensnared him and countless other unsuspecting families. Desperation set in. In the ensuing days, David retreated from the world, immersing himself in the dark recesses of online forums where tales of similar misfortune were shared. The stories were eerily familiar. Unsolicited emails boasting outstanding results, listings copied from legitimate sites with minor alterations, and agents whose confusion masked their deceit. One message, echoing a refrain from a long-forgotten warning, caught his eye. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. The mantra resonated within him, a cruel reminder of the naivete that had once blinded him. Haunted by the betrayal and tormented by sleepless nights, David resolved to fight back. He sought out a determined lawyer and a tireless journalist, and soon discovered a network of victims who had been similarly defrauded. In the shadows of late-night support groups and the anonymous corners of message boards, he found allies, strangers whose lives had been upended by the same callous scam. The legal battle was arduous, a winding, uncertain road marked by setbacks and revelations. Yet, with every twist, every new piece of evidence unearthed by a whistleblower whose loyalties were as murky as the fog that sometimes rolled in over Harmony, the truth began to emerge. Years passed in a blur of court dates, tense interviews, and sleepless nights. The truth, painstakingly pieced together from scattered documents and anonymous tips, revealed that Home Masters LLC was nothing more than a front, a shell company used to defraud desperate homebuyers. The banks, perhaps swayed by the sheer force of public outcry or simply weary of the mounting scandal, eventually ruled in David's favor. The balance was forgiven, and the house, battered and scarred by the ordeal, was finally declared his. This journey, though arduous, was a profound lesson in the importance of due diligence and the power of perseverance. In the aftermath of that legal victory, under the unyielding glare of a television studio's lights, David was forced to confront the duality of his existence. On the stage, before a live audience, he recited his now practiced mantra, smart decisions early. But here's the thing, verify everything. Don't just trust, check everything. An investment only matters if it's real. The words once uttered with the careless pride of youth now carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. Yet, beneath the surface of public triumph, David's mind churned with questions. How had he been so thoroughly deceived? And more chillingly, were others using similar tricks to prey on the hopeful? During his late-night research, when the world was quiet and the truth seemed to lurk in every shadow, he noticed a disturbing pattern. In various online forums and Reddit threads, he read of unsolicited emails flaunting outstanding results, of real estate listings that were too good to be true, and of agents whose credentials were as confused as his own memories of home masters. Scrawled by a user named You Throwaway Scammer, one comment chilled him. I received an email from a real estate agent bragging about their outstanding results. It's a red flag. Always do your due diligence before trusting anyone in real estate. Another post from You Concerned Citizen recounted how these emails were the first step in a web of scams. David recognized these tactics, the same methods that had lured him into a trap. Determined not to let his painful experience go to waste, David transformed his ordeal into a beacon for others. He would become a guide in a world of deceit, a real estate guru dedicated to exposing scams and teaching people how to protect themselves. His determination inspired many, showing them that even in the face of adversity, one can rise and make a difference. Smart decisions early, he would say, echoing his old mantra. But it's not just about making a choice, it's about following through with diligence. Don't be seduced by promises. Verify every detail. Ask questions. Demand transparency. His lectures were punctuated by real-life examples and checklists he had painstakingly assembled, a practical guide to navigating the treacherous waters of real estate. His book, From Bragging to Building, A Journey Through Real Estate, became a bestseller. It chronicled his transformation from a boastful young homeowner to a seasoned survivor of fraud. Yet even as his reputation grew, David remained haunted by the specter of deception. The taste of betrayal was never far away, a bitter reminder that the world was full of people who would stop at nothing to take advantage of the hopeful. David's voice grew more decisive and resolute with each seminar and online video on his burgeoning YouTube channel. He interviewed other victims of real estate scams, experts who dissected the anatomy of fraudulent deals, and even some who admitted that they once believed in the myth of a perfect deal. Together, they formed a community of the wary, a collective determined to shine a light on the dark corners of the industry. As David's influence grew, he noticed unsettling whispers in the internet's dark corners. A new kind of trickster had emerged in those digital spaces where survivors of scams poured out their cautionary tales. These self-styled real estate experts paraded their so-called insider knowledge with an arrogance that echoed David's youthful swagger. Flashy websites promised untold secrets, and costly seminars dangled the lure of a shortcut to wealth, a shortcut that was, in reality, nothing more than a well-rehearsed con. A listener recalled the surreal experience of attending a free seminar in one vivid account. The speaker had boasted endlessly about his fortune, only to abruptly pivot and try to sell an expensive course. The promise was as empty as the polished testimonials that filled his website, and the attendee later remarked how swiftly the illusion evaporated, leaving nothing but a sense of betrayal and wasted hope. David absorbed these stories with a growing dread. It was as though the cycle of deceit he had once suffered was being reborn, repackaged for a new generation. The tactics were disturbingly familiar. Slick pitches, extravagant claims, and promises that, if scrutinized, crumbled like the false foundation of a poorly built house. For David, the realization was bitter. He had clawed out of the darkness of his scam and emerged as a beacon of hope for those still lost in the mire. Yet here were these modern charlatans, parasites feeding on the dreams of those too naive to know the hard lessons of trust and due diligence. In that moment, the digital cacophony of false promises and hollow success stories deepened his resolve. David knew that to protect others from falling into these well-laid traps, he would have to expose these tricks for what they were: carefully constructed illusions designed to vanish with every unsuspecting dollar. Late one stormy night, as rain battered the study windows and thunder drummed ominously, David sat alone with his thoughts. The flickering glow of his computer screen revealed a tapestry of online threads where users recounted chilling tales of fraudulent seminars and dubious coaching programs. In these accounts, individuals detailed their encounters with bewildered agents, missing paperwork, and deals that were always on the way, tactics that eerily mirrored the deception of his own past. A new determination took root in David's heart. He resolved not only to educate his followers about the perils of real estate scams, but also to unmask the tricks employed by modern gurus. The next day, armed with evidence he had painstakingly gathered, he conducted a covert investigation into this burgeoning network of fraudsters. Disguised among hopeful homebuyers and aspiring investors, David attended seminars incognito. In the dim, cramped conference rooms, he observed self-assured speakers whose voices dripped with rehearsed confidence as they extolled secret strategies and insider tips. Their slides were slick and testimonials meticulously curated, yet beneath the polished veneer lay an undercurrent of desperation, a desperate need to convince others that they could achieve instant wealth. David recorded snippets of these presentations, capturing the smug expressions and hollow promises. He noted recurring phrases: "This is the shortcut to your dream home. Don't miss out on the deal of a lifetime." And, most chillingly, "If it sounds too good to be true, it is, but only if you don't act now." Each phrase haunted him, a ghost of the allure that had once blinded him. In one seminar, a particularly flashy guru boasted of having amassed a fortune by leveraging little-known tricks of the real estate market. His presentation was punctuated with images of opulent homes and bank statements that danced with impressive sums. Yet, as David scrutinized the details, inconsistencies emerged. Timelines that never aligned and proof of ownership that was dubious at best. Clearly, the entire narrative had been contrived to seduce those who had not yet learned the harsh lessons of caution. The climax of David's investigation came during an unexpected encounter. At a mid-sized conference held in a repurposed warehouse on the outskirts of Harmony, David found himself seated in the front row among a sea of eager faces. The lights were dim, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. On stage was the infamous guru, a man whose slick hair and polished demeanor betrayed nothing of the emptiness behind his promises. As the guru launched into his pitch, David's pulse quickened. Every boast and claim resonated with the echoes of his own past. David approached the stage after the seminar ended, and the audience dispersed in a frenzy of self-congratulation and financial hope. With the calm determination of a man who had weathered storms, he asked the guru to join him in a brief conversation away from the prying eyes of the audience. In a quiet corner backstage, away from the neon glare and manufactured enthusiasm, David confronted the guru. "Your words, they sound familiar," he began softly, his voice measured and low. "I once believed in the promise of quick success, in the idea that a single smart decision could change everything. But I learned the hard way that trust must be earned, not given on a silver platter." The guru's smile faltered for a moment. "I'm offering hope," he replied, though his tone lacked conviction. "Hope should never come at the price of deception," David countered, his eyes burning with the intensity of his convictions. "You are selling dreams that aren't real. To lure people in, you use unsolicited emails, flashy testimonials, and promises that everything will be processed on time. These are the same tricks I once fell for, and I will not let you, and others like you, prey on the vulnerable." The exchange was brief, but it sent shockwaves through those who had witnessed it. Later that night, David took to his podcast and YouTube channel, laying bare the evidence he had collected. He recounted the seminar meticulously, the carefully rehearsed phrases, the suspicious documents, and the glaring inconsistencies. His tone was both sorrowful and resolute as he explained how many so-called gurus were nothing more than repackaged scams, exploiting the same tactics that had once nearly ruined his life. The exposé spread like wildfire. Social media erupted with support for David's revelations, and soon conversations ignited on Reddit, threads, blogs, and even news outlets. People shared their stories of being duped by flashy promises and false hope. The momentum of his crusade forced regulators to take notice, and soon, new discussions about consumer protection and real estate transparency filled the airwaves. David's transformation from a braggart to a beacon of caution had come full circle. No longer was he merely the proud homeowner of a modest house in Harmony. He had become a guardian of truth, a mentor for those stepping into the murky world of property investment. His seminars now carried an added weight, a promise that every word was steeped in the harsh lessons of his past. In a final twist that few had anticipated, it was revealed that even the whistleblower who had once aided his legal battle had been entangled with the network of fraudulent gurus. The betrayal stung again, but it only strengthened David's resolve. He understood that the war against deception was far from over, that every victory was merely a pause before the next storm. The legal battles, the media scrutiny, and the late-night investigations had all culminated in this moment of reckoning. David Ortega's voice, once filled with the careless pride of youth, now carried the weight of a man who had seen the darkest corners of ambition and greed. His message was clear. An investment only matters if it's real, and a dream only matters if built on truth. As the days turned to months and the seasons shifted once more over Harmony, David found himself in a quiet moment of reflection. Sitting in the same study where he had once pored over documents in search of answers, he looked out the window at a world that continued to turn, indifferent to the struggles of a single man. Yet, within him, a fire still burned, a relentless drive to ensure that others would not be deceived as he had been. He often recalled his father's voice, the gentle cadence that had taught him the value of every stitch, every penny. That memory was both a comfort and a call to action. For David, the journey was far from over. Every new scam uncovered, every fraudulent guru exposed, was another stitch in the vast tapestry of his ongoing mission. He would conclude with a somber warning in his seminars, now attended by hundreds. Look beyond the glitz, beyond the false promises. Seek out the truth buried in the fine print. And remember, trust must always be earned. His words resonated with the quiet conviction of someone who had learned that every decision and investment must be scrutinized, for the world was rife with shadows that could consume the unwary. In the flickering candlelight of his study, amid the faded photographs of his childhood and the battered awards of his later triumphs, David Ortega penned his final thoughts in the margins of his journal. He wrote of the endless cycle of hope and deception, of the moments when a man's dreams are shattered only to be rebuilt on the ruins of his past. And he vowed, quietly but resolutely, that he would continue to fight, not just for himself, but for every soul daring to dream of a better future. In the end, the accurate measure of an investment is not in the promise of riches, but in the integrity of the journey. And David Ortega, once a braggart and now a guardian of truth, had learned that the actual home one builds is not made of bricks and mortar, but of trust, diligence, and the courage to expose the darkness that lurks behind every dazzling promise.